All right, y'all, today I am comparing 7 different rediffuser bases. And let me tell you, depending upon the chemical composition, like what the blend is, they are not all created equal, y'all. And that means they don't all perform the same. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Kerry. I'm the owner of Couture Home and Body. I'm so glad you're here. We have a lot to get into. It's gonna be technical. I'm gonna do my best to break it down for you, but I just wanna get into it. We have 7 rediffuser bases to compare and contrast. This one was super interesting. All right, I'm gonna talk about the criteria really quickly before we get into the results. If it made the list, it's because it had a min IFRA usage for rediffuser in their base at 20%. That was the min. I did look for bases that could hold more, just because rediffuser bases are very fickle depending upon the oil that you use. So if it didn't have a min usage of at least 20%, it didn't make the list. And so for that, the Flaming Candle rediffuser base did not make my list. I had some folks specifically say, I hope you're testing the Flaming Candle. I'm not. I know I did the room spray, but it didn't make the list because the max usage is 15%. I want to share also that I have been making rediffusers for our home for the better part of 7-8 years. I would buy the oil blend off a store on Etsy. I had my own reeds and my own bottles. So I've been making rediffusers for a long time, and they weren't all created equal. A lot of them didn't throw very well, even when I was rotating the reeds. So the results that I'm about to share with you with these 7 bases, I had to start over because the fragrance oil that I was using was not performing in any of the bases. And you guys, that is gonna happen, so keep that in mind. If you're choosing an oil and it has, a 20% or 25%, whatever, usage in rediffuser base, it doesn't mean it's going to perform well. And I was using white tea and thyme from Simbi. It just did not. In 7 bases, it was, I used the max allowable percentage for the base. So keep that in mind as you do your own testing. You probably want to start with a few oils and see how they do. So when the white tea and thyme from Simbi didn't work out, Candle Supply came in strong, and I am using the matcha and bergamot for all of the testing today. I love this fragrance. If you haven't checked out my review, oh my God, check it out here if you are interested. This is my favorite version of matcha and bergamot. So I am using reed diffuser bases that are fiber. I am not using the rattan ones. Having used rediffuser bases in our home, I found that the rattan didn't perform as consistently or throw as well as the fiber. So I am using fiber for all of my tests. So if you are using rattan, your results will probably vary. Just like with fragrance oils, rediffuser bases also come from other manufacturers or suppliers that mass produce it for the candle supply companies that we are purchasing from. So with different bases, some of these companies are mixing them in-house, and most of them are getting them from a manufacturer. You'll definitely want to rotate your reeds every week. And the reason you want to do that is so that the reeds are constantly getting proper saturation for optimal scent throw. You can leave them in there and not rotate, but you will not have great results. So if you're looking to add this to your product line, make sure you have a card or something like that and speak to it to the customer if you're selling in person, have it on the product page online. They're going to want to rotate their reeds. And if they don't have a glove, they can use a tissue, but that's why IFRA has a max percentage, is because most people are not going to use a glove. They're going to use their hand to rotate the reeds. And it has to be safe because it's skin contact. So a lot of folks will look at oils and be like, well, I can use this in soap, but I can't use it in diffuser. Yes, because it's pretty much direct. It's oil and base, and it's gonna get on hands. And if you're using an oil that's not IFRA approved, you can risk, burning the skin, causing a severe reaction because of that dermal contact. So when I posted the teaser that I was going to be working on rediffuser bases, I had a ton of people excited and also asking me to test very specific ones. I'd already purchased all of the ones I was going to test, and I just want to reiterate here, I pay for this with my own money. anything I make through affiliates, or you folks here tuning in, liking my videos, subscribing, and purchasing anything through my affiliate links, it all goes back into this channel to help me do tests like this. So I had 6, but I want to give a huge shout out and thank you. Thank you, Tony. She sent me the Waxy Flower Reed Diffuser base. It wasn't part of my testing, but when she saw that post, she messaged me and said, I would like you to test Waxy Flower. I'm going to send it and ship it to you if you wouldn't mind folding it in. I'm so very appreciative of that. It was very generous. Thank you so much, Tony. So let's start with the Waxy Flower one. Let's get into it. So the Waxy Flower Reed Diffuser base, on their website, they do not list the SDS sheet. I had to email them and request it. They were very gracious, sent it within 24 hours. I just want to say I don't like when companies don't supply the proper documentation, whether it's a base or a fragrance oil. Like, don't make me have to reach out. I probably won't purchase from you if you don't have it, if you want transparent. So that is me, that is my 2 cents. This retails for $29.95 a gallon. Again, huge thank you to Tony for sending me that to be a part of this. They have a 20% load recommendation. So I'm going to use the max because that is my min 20. So the base on its own doesn't really have a particularly strong or specific fragrance. It doesn't smell like alcohol. When I smell it, it doesn't really smell like anything. My recommendation is when you are making reed diffusers, rotate your reeds after 24 hours so that the whole thing can get proper saturation. So after the first 24 hours, the Waxy Flower base had a strong output. It was about a 4 out of 5. This one has 8 reeds because I put this in our gym, which is the biggest room that I have up here. So here's what we're looking for. We're looking for full saturation after we've rotated the reeds. So I made it, put the reeds in, 24 hours later I rotated it, and then I checked it again 24 hours later at the 48-hour mark, and we had full saturation on the reeds. I do need a bigger vessel than this for that room, or I'm gonna do 2 with 6 reeds each, just because it's such a large room. It would just make sense. I'm asking a lot. It's like putting a small candle in a room and being like, just, make the whole thing smell like a 2-ounce vessel. You know what I'm saying. At the second week, it had a low scent retention. It had dropped to a 3 out of 5. The reeds were losing their scent potency. Did a flip rotation and it was better. By the 3rd week, the reeds were completely dry, and they'll need a rotation after 5 days instead of 7 days. So in your testing, be sure that you're checking these every couple of days because you want to be right on it when the reeds start to lose saturation and they become completely dry. So yeah, my notice here is that they'll need rotation after 5 days instead of 7 to continue throwing off a solid scent. And then the 4th week, we had about a 30% reduction in fill weight of the oil. So I filled these up to 2.5 ounces. You could fill more, but I just wanted to have the same starting point for everybody. And you can see it's only dropped about 30%, I'm guessing. The reeds are damp, but there is a very alcohol-y smell when I'm rotating the reeds, and that could just be due to the fragrance oil interacting with the base. So I just rotated these 2 days ago, and I want to show you if you can see. They still have good saturation. Can you see that it's still wet? I can't. If it's hard to pick up, I'm so sorry, you guys. So the Waxy Flower one is not my favorite. It's a little more high maintenance. I think it's a lot to ask to have to swap these every 5 days. That's kind of annoying for me personally. But take that with a grain of salt, and that is the Waxy Flower Reed Diffuser base. All right, next up is the brand Crafter's Choice. I got this from Wholesale Supplies Plus. This was the first one I bought before I got into all of the research, and I realized this has a really crappy load, like what I was talking about at the beginning. This only holds 10 to 15%. I'd already purchased it. I couldn't return it. So this was sort of the starting point of like, okay, I need to make sure the bases have a 20% min. Let's talk about Crafter's Choice. It is $12.95 a pound. There's no alcohol or DPG. This is Leaping Bunny and VOC certified. So DPG is dipropylene glycol. You probably remember this or seen it talked about when I did my room and linen spray. It's non-toxic, it's non-flammable, and it's safe for skin contact because it's also used in cosmetic grade formulas. So I want to show you. So you can see here the evaporation. This was filled to about 2.5 ounces. So we're probably looking at, I don't know, maybe 60% there. 2.5 ounce fill, just a reminder. This base does have a strong chemical smell. So the DPG, it's thick. It makes the base thicker. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of hard to see. What is great about using DPG in these types of formulas is that it's slow to evaporate. And that's why this one has, you know, just under half full, which is great. Let's get into performance. So we had full saturation in the reeds after 48 hours. It did have a low scent output though. It was a 2 out of 5. It was very weak. All right. Week 1, did the reed rotation. The reeds were completely dry at the top. So obviously the ones that are in here were wet where it had direct contact with the base, but everywhere else dry as a bone. All right, let's talk about week 2 for Crafter's Choice. We have a much stronger scent throw going on. It has jumped up to a 4 out of 5 up until day 5. And then the scent started to reduce dramatically as the reeds were drying out. So on day 7 for that initial rotation, I'm noticing we probably want to do it earlier. And so I would recommend at the 6-day mark, but definitely depending upon the fragrance oil, you know, checking in at that 5 and 6-day mark. So the 3rd week, the reeds were still slightly damp. With saturation, definitely would benefit at a 6-day rotation. So the 4th week, the chemical smell is still lingering. It's not overpowering, but it's still there. So for folks that are sensitive, this might not work for you. But considering that it only has a 15% load, it did pretty decently. Completely dry reeds at the 4-week mark, it had a 50% evaporation. And let's see, today, I just rotated these 2 days ago. Yep, still some mild saturation there. It's just very interesting that I put it on the glove here and then it starts to evaporate. This one was okay. It did better, I think, in terms of reed saturation at a longer period, the 6-day mark, over the Waxy Flower. But I still feel like we need more of a consistent, strong throw week to week to week, instead of this one needing to kind of warm up the engine, and it would get stronger as the weeks went on and the more I rotated the reeds. Again, for me, I think that's high maintenance. It's a lot to ask of your customer to be checked, you know, to rotate it every 6 days. I don't know. To each his own. This is simply my 2 cents. The Crafter's Choice was in like the shower toilet section of the bathroom, so it's a smaller room, and it didn't completely fill it up. After 2 weeks, it definitely got better, but for a small space, I don't think this would perform in a larger space. Let's talk about the Makesy Coco Pure Reed Diffuser. It retails for $18.95 a pound. This was in a guest bathroom that's in like our guest bedroom. I didn't shut the door or anything, I just let it sit in the bathroom. This has a max load of 50%. I think that's one of the highest of all of these bases. So you have a lot of wiggle room there. If you find an oil that can go to like 30% and you want it to be super strong, this could be a great option for you. It has less than 1% VOC. It is a vegan coconut infused base. It has a slightly sweet floral smell. Honestly, when I was digging into the ingredients, my note here says it looks more like a pre-fragranced reed diffuser oil, or at the very least like a heavily scented carrier base, because it does already have this sort of sweet, perfumey floral smell, which If you're not using something that's complementary, I think we could have much different results, and I don't have time to test multiple oils, but I wanted to point that out. I'm not sure this will play well with all fragrance oils. You would need to test to find that out. Okay, so here are the ingredients that I pulled out specifically that, and I'll put them on the screen here, that are causing it to have sort of that sweet, perfumey, florally smell. So this one is basically a phenylmethyl ester. This one is a benzyl salicylate, and it itself, that chemical has a mild, like floral / powdery scent, which is definitely contributing to the smell of the base. The other ingredient here, dihydrogeraniol, it itself smells like geranium or citronella. Geranium to me smells like fruity. And we all know what citronella smells like. It's a very particular scent. And I'm not saying this smells like citronella out the gate, but it is floral, fruity, sweet. So when you combine those together into this base, that's what you're gonna get. Research these ingredients to make sure you familiarize yourself with them. Are you okay with using them? All right, the first 24 hours before I rotated the reeds, it had a really good scent output, and we had full saturation at the 24-hour mark. So then when I rotated it, I knew it was just gonna get better. It was a 3.8 out of 5. The first week, reed flip, again, strong scent output, good saturation. The reeds are wet. We're at a 4 out of 5 for scent output. Week 2, it had a weaker scent output after the 4-day mark. So it was going strong in gangbusters for 4 days. And then on that 5th day, it started to wane. I couldn't smell it. And it dropped to about a 3 out of 5 for scent output. All right, the 3rd week, the reeds were completely bone dry. And these would definitely benefit from a rotation after the 4-day mark. All right, we're at the 4-week mark. I'm actually a little bit past that now, but I wanted to keep these going right until I filmed this video. We're at an approximately 95% reduction in the base. So you can see where it's evaporated off. Again, this was a 2.5 ounce fill with a 25% fragrance load. And the reeds are slightly damp. So I rotated them a few days ago. So let's take a look. Yeah, I would say they're slightly damp. They're not like super saturated, but there's also like barely any liquid left in here. This probably will get you 5 weeks, but it's going to suffer after that 4-week mark. All right, let's talk about Cal Candle. They have their own reed diffuser base. It retails for $13.44 a pound. I had this in a small bedroom at the front of the house. It's probably the smallest room that we have, but I still did 6 reeds. All right, this has a 33% max load that the base can handle, which is pretty great, pretty high. And they recommend that you add 25 to 33%. Here's the thing about their base. It's safe for not only reed diffusers, but also cold air diffusers and cold air nebulizers. Very interesting. This base has a slightly sweet floral alcohol smell. The ingredients of this I do not love. This is one of my least favorites. This, like the Makesy one, reads like it's a pre-fragranced reed diffuser oil, or also like a heavily scented carrier base, which I don't love. But the ingredients are not as good or nice as the Makesy ones. So this should, I mean, you want a base that's a neutral solvent base. You don't want it to add any fragrance because it's going to compete with what you're trying to do, with fragrances that you're trying to put in here. The ingredients in here range from a mild floral / powdery scent to like a geranium, citronella, to mint and herbal. It's bonkers. It's weird. I don't like it. So we have, and I'll put the name here on the screen. This is a synthetic floral aldehyde. It used to be common in perfumery, but it is banned in the EU due to reproductive toxicity concerns. It's not considered clean or safe under stricter regulations. And here in the US, we have, I mean, it may seem like we have strict regulations, but they're loosey-goosey compared to what they're doing in the EU. For that reason, I will no longer be using this. I just did it for the test, but once I looked into those ingredients, it bummed me out. let's get into performance. All right, after the first 24 hours, the reeds were okay with saturation, but they were the driest comparatively to everyone else. The scent output was a 3 out of 5. All right, week 1, it has okay saturation. Did the reed flip, 3.5 scent dispersal out of 5. So definitely improved, but you'll notice the trend here that anytime you are flipping the reeds and you're like refreshing them, they're all gonna smell a lot stronger and that output is going to be stronger. The difference maker is how long is it sticking around for? How long is it lasting before it evaporates? All right, after the second week, this was definitely the weakest of the whole lot. The scent throw was a 2 out of 5. Not great, Bob. All right, the third week, the reeds were completely bone dry. You would need to manage this base with these reeds quite often. You're looking at needing to rotate every 3 to 4 days, but probably 3. Week 4, 90%, 95% reduction. It's almost gone, actually, 98 maybe. You can see here, it's almost completely evaporated. And the reeds were pretty much dry. I just rotated these a few weeks ago, so I'm going to show you on my glove. That's okay saturation. Like I said, not my fave. That is the Cal Candle Reed Diffuser base. All right, let's talk about Midwest, you guys. This retails for $11.99 a pound. This was in our downstairs guest bathroom. It's a half bath, so it's a really small space. The base has a slightly sweet vanilla odor. The website also states that it's non-toxic. You guys, based on the ingredients, I mean, it's not non-toxic unless it's deliberately formulated like the Candle Science Eco Base, right? Which we'll get into. This has DEG, MBE. It's an irritant. It is not technically non-toxic. It does have low toxicity in small amounts. It doesn't mean that the formula is clean. These are things to just, in your research, digging into ingredients, just understanding what is in it, what you're using, and what is okay for you and your customers. It is DPG, alcohol, and phthalate and paraben free. So DPGs, I think they're necessary evil. When it comes to like the room spray base, it helps it perform very well. But if you absolutely do not want anything with DPG in it, this could potentially be a good candidate for you. All right, let's talk about performance. So after the first 24 hours, we had most like an 80% saturation in the reeds, and after 48 hours, it had full saturation. All right, the scent output was okay. It was a 3.5 out of 5. When it comes to reed diffuser bases, I'm not grading it the same as a candle, because a candle that's performing at a 3.5, 3.8, 4, like that's solid. But reed diffuser, it's not as potent as a candle because you don't have the heat of a flame like pushing that scent out into the air. You just have these reeds. So I think a 3.5 is okay, not super strong. So the second week, it had an okay scent throw, 3.5, probably due to the evaporation and the reeds needing to be rotated sooner so that we can get that max scent output. The third week, okay, we have a weak scent throw. As the week went on, I should have read my notes. I mean, I'm going week by week. Bear with me. Once it has a reed rotation, it gets a solid 5 days of a stronger scent throw. So you'll definitely want to rotate at that 5-day mark. All right, and the fourth week, we had about a 15-20% reduction. I just rotated these 2 days ago. So we still have some good saturation there, and you can see the level here. So because there's no alcohol, there's no DPG in here, you're not getting that fast evaporation. So you're gonna. All right, let's talk about Hive and Honey. Their reed diffuser base retails for $15 a pound. This is the one that I had in our master bathroom. We have a separate toilet area that is different from, like, it has a door and everything. It's a smaller space from the rest of the bathroom. I put it there, but I left the door open. This has a 15 to 20% max load capacity, so I used 20% in here. All right, and I do want to point out this is the only company that is fully transparent with their ingredients. I understand that for some companies it's proprietary and they don't want to share. I'm not a fan. As you know, I've mentioned it all over this channel in different videos. So I appreciate that Angie is transparent about the ingredients, and it's a short list. All right, we had full saturation after 48 hours of rotation, a great scent output. For that small space, it was a 4 out of 5. And again, this is after that 48 hour period. All right, after the first week, we did a reed rotation. Good saturation, good scent throw. We're at a 4.5 out of 5. The second week, we get a solid 5 days of strong scent throw, and then it diminished after day 5. So this is one that will definitely need to be rotated after 5 days. So we're seeing a trend here. Sorry, it's my husband. We're seeing a trend here where with the fiber reeds needing to rotate every 5-6 days, not necessarily a week. I will say when I was using the rattan ones, I found those dried out a lot quicker, and I was rotating even sooner if I wanted to get full scent retention. So this is just my experience. All right, so we have the second week. This had a solid like 5-6 days of strong scent throw, and then it started to diminish. So by the time we got to that 7-day mark, it was definitely ready. Though the reeds were not dry, they still had some solid saturation. All right, third week. The reeds still have moderate saturation. I have a note here that check it 6 days, but can probably be rotated on the 7th day because the reeds aren't completely dry and it still has a solid output. Fourth week, we only saw about a 15 to 18% reduction. The reeds are damp. I just did these 2 days ago. So these still are pretty damp, pretty wet, which is what we want to see. We don't want to see it evaporating after just 2 days. But you can see here, it still looks almost full. This is a 2.5 ounce fill with a 20% load. And so for here, the fill probably goes to like right here. So it's doing really well in terms of not evaporating away. All right, let's talk about the Candle Science Eco Reed Diffuser Base. This one was sold out for like most of February on Candle Science's website. I could not get my hands on it, but I for sure wanted to use this one. They have two. They have one that's a non-eco, and I couldn't get it. But my bestie Jess said, girl, I got you. I have it. I just haven't had a chance to play with it. She sent it to me so I could include it for my testing. So thank you so much, Jess. I appreciate you. All right, it's $12.11 a pound. This was sitting in Pete's office. It is 100% biodegradable. It has a max fragrance load of 25%, which is what I used. So Candle Science does not share their ingredients. So if you dig into the SDS sheet, which I always tell you to do, you can go in there and see the ingredients that they are required to disclose. Because it's proprietary, they aren't required to disclose the percentage of each. There's like a range in there. So DPM is one of the main ingredients that they're using here. It's dipropylene glycol methyl ether, and it's a workhorse solvent in home fragrance. So it is doing the majority of the heavy lifting to help those reeds disperse the scent, the fragrance. At the 3-week mark, it was completely evaporated, like gone. All right, y'all, I wanted to show you just after the 3-week mark, this Candle Science, this jar is empty, bone dry. The reeds are still saturated, but it is dry. It's been like this for a couple days. I just haven't had a chance to like film. So I'm making a new one. We're gonna start all over. I'm gonna fill it with 3 ounces instead of 2.5 and see if that makes a difference, because maybe it'll last that month or whatever. But I was pretty shocked to see that it completely evaporated. And I filled all of the bottles up to 2.5 ounces so I could have the same level fill to see how's everything doing. Which caused me to go into the SDS again and try to figure out, why did this one dissolve and not the other ones? It's really strange. So let's get into it really quickly before I share how it performed. So what I've garnered is it's probably made from fast evaporating solvents, likely glycol ethers or light alcohol blends, because those are going to evaporate the fastest. It was designed for strong scent throw, not longevity. So you may want to fill it up past 2.5 ounces to get to the 3-week mark. It evaporating in 3 weeks tells me that it was designed for strong scent throw, not longevity. And DPM has a pretty moderate evaporation speed. So with all of that, after 3 weeks, when it was completely dissolved, I have my notes here for how it performed. I then poured another one, but I did 3 ounces instead of 2.5 ounces. Because if it's almost evaporating, if it's evaporating like 0.85 ounces is gone every week, which is very fast. All right, let's get into performance. So after the first 24 hours, we had a full saturation. This was the only base that had full saturation after 1 day. I still rotated because, again, doing the same test across them all. But the scent output was incredible. It was a 4.5 out of 5. All right, after the first week on the 7-day reed flip, the reeds were still mostly wet. The saturation was really good. And the scent throw was a 4.5. All right, second week, really strong scent throw, continues to perform. It's a 4.5 out of 5. The reeds are fully saturated. So I'm still rotating every 7 days. All right, the third week, this is where it was completely evaporated. The bottle was empty, but the reeds were still damp. Whoa! It's so crazy. Since it was completely evaporated, you could consider rotating every 6 days, but my test, I don't want to do that. I want to do it once a week, and I want to see if filling it to 3 ounces helps it reduce evaporation. So that is still ongoing. I have 2 more weeks left. It's still halfway full, so I think my theory in just adding that extra ½ ounce was accurate, but we'll see. I still need to continue testing and get all of my data before I can say for sure. But that is my working theory. We did 7 reed diffuser bases. Let me give you my final thoughts. Based on all of the data, all of the performance and testing that happened, I guess it's no secret, Candle Science Eco Base won out for me. It had the strongest scent retention. It has the cleanest, best ingredients in the base. The reeds, these fiber reeds loved this base. I mean, it was like, drink it up like crazy. And I think my 3 ounce fill versus a 2.5 ounce fill, and again, your mileage may vary, test. The scent output was so good. It smelled the strongest, and also it's priced fantastically at $12.11 a pound. If it's something you think you are going to add to your line, you should just get the bigger jug, because a 1 pound is only going to fill like 5 of these approx at 3 ounces. Now, if you have a bigger bottle, you're going to use more. I think that the 25% fragrance load is perfect. But more than anything, just performance and ingredients. The other thing that I think is super freaking helpful, you guys, is on their website, it's like, I'm looking for a fragrance oil for reed diffusers. You can click on reed diffuser fragrance oils. It takes the guesswork out, you guys. It's very tedious. Like, I was looking at, there's so many oils that I wanted to try and use before matcha and bergamot from Candela like came into my life like very fast. None of them worked. And then the one that I thought would work didn't work. So that's the thing with trial and error. Like, you have to test everything. The same way I recommend putting fragrance oil into wax is the same way I say, reed diffusers are even tougher, if you can believe it. My runner-up would be the Hive and Honey base. It is a little bit more expensive. It has a lower max load at 20%, but it still performed really well with scent output. I almost said scent retention. With scent output. So if you're shopping on Hive and Honey and you want to try it, add it to your cart. I have a link down below. It is an affiliate link. So if this video was helpful and you want to check it out, please consider using my code, because it does help me out and it goes back into this channel. The other honorable mention would be the Makesy one. I think I definitely want to go back and play with that one a little bit more, just because it has a higher fragrance oil load for what it can carry. Though you have to find a fragrance oil that is reed diffuser approved. I don't want to say the loser here, but I would say the one that I would recommend staying away from would be the Candle reed diffuser base, just based on those crappy ingredients alone and the fact that it has such a strong scent just to the base. I didn't love it, and it's like still kind of lingers there even with adding my fragrance oil. I talked at the top of this video that certain fragrances are not approved for reed diffuser because you're having skin contact. The other reason is if that oil is super viscous, like it's really thick, it won't travel up the reeds. So you could have a double whammy there where it's not safe for skin, but it's also too thick to travel up the reeds. So I've talked to some makers during this testing period, and God bless, one of them said, wait, I didn't know I had to look at the usage. I just add it to my diffusers, to my base. And it's blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, she's like, I'm so embarrassed. She's like, I can't believe I'm saying this. So I was like, it's okay. You only know what you know. But like, IFRA is for every product. Check your IFRA guidelines before you use your oils. Girl. It's okay. It's okay. This is why we have this community. I love it. We learn from each other. We help each other. So, okay. I have one final controversial opinion that I want to share. I don't think reed diffusers are great. I think they're a little more high maintenance than I am willing to do, to put the work into. My thought is this: I would much rather have a candle or a room spray. I'd much rather have a candle, first and foremost. But then I'd much rather have a room spray. I feel like the reed diffusers are just okay. If you want to really scent a space, you want it to work max, use a much bigger diffuser bottle, add the appropriate number of reeds. So if you have a big space, you're gonna wanna use more than 6 reeds, right? You'll probably wanna use 8 to 10, or even 12 if you have a nice big bottle. You know, stuff it with reeds to really help dissipate the scent. I don't like having to rotate every week. Again, this is a personal opinion, personal preference. Room spray, I can anchor it to like pillows, couches, curtains, whatever, and it'll linger for a couple days. I light a candle, it like immediately is filling up the space, and I love it, and I love the warm glow of a candle. But you know, I would say reed diffusers are sort of at the bottom of my list in terms of preferred ways to scent a space. Though I will say this, in the smaller bathrooms, like the Hive and Honey one, because it was in that small one, which performed great, it's nice to walk into that space and it smells good. You know what I mean? No one wants to smell like, you know? So walking into a small space, like where the Hive and Honey one was, like in our bathroom, it's gonna smell stronger because it's in that smaller space. So you're gonna want to get multiple bottles to test your fragrance oil in different size rooms so you know how many reeds to put in there. I definitely didn't need 6 in that small bathroom. I probably could have got away with 4, but again, just trying to keep it even for everyone except for the gym. I know I used 8 there because the room is massive. So all of this, again, just take it with a grain of salt. These are just simply my experiences and my opinions based on these tests that I did. And again, I tried to keep it even and consistent with the same fill, using the max load that was doable for the oil and the base and what it recommended. If you're looking for a base that customers like, oh, it's just got a handful, TBG, I'm okay, it's in the room spray, I use it, it's in that body spray, and they're good with that, Hive and Honey for sure is my backup recommendation. And then the Makesy Coco Pure Diffuse. So I'm gonna pass it off to you guys. Have you tried any of these bases before? What was your experience? If you had a positive experience for one that maybe I didn't have a positive experience with, what oil did you use? Tell me everything. I want to know. Are you using fiber? Are you using rattan reeds? I mean, there's so many variables here. Like I said at the top, I could be testing forever. I just want to say a huge thank you again to Tony. Thank you for that Waxy Flower base, and to Jess for sending me the Candle Science Eco Base. Ended up taking home the whole thing. All right, that's gonna do it for this one, you guys. Thank you so much for all the feedback that I've received from the room spray one and just the excitement that you showed for this reed diffuser one. I hope I didn't disappoint. I so appreciate you being here, just carving out some time in your day to hang out with me. If you want to continue hanging out, please do. Let's do it. But until the next one, you guys, I'll see you then. Bye.